Alright, today we're going to look at solving special right triangles with 30, 60, 90 degree right triangles. So this is another type of special right triangle. When you see a triangle that has either 30 degrees or 60 degrees in it, and it's obviously a right angle or a right triangle, then you know it's going to follow this set of rules. Let's turn that off. Okay. So, a 30, 60, 90 degree right triangle has different relationships with each of the sides. So we have a short side, which is n, a long side, which is n times the square root of 3, and then we have the hypotenuse, which is 2n. Okay, so the length of C, or the hypotenuse, is twice the length of the short leg. That's why it's 2n. And the length of the longer leg is the square root of 3 times the shorter leg, so n times the square root of 3. So using these relationships, we're going to look to solve for missing sides of a 30, 60, 90 degree right triangle. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is figure out what side is what. So if you look at example 1, this is obviously a 30, 60, 90 degree right triangle because this is 60 degrees. This box means this is 90, so this remaining piece has to be 30 because all triangles have to add up to be 180 degrees inside. And if I add these up, this makes 180. So this is a 30, 60, 90 degree right triangle. So we're going to use the rules we just talked about. So again, what you want to do is label your sides. I have sides X, Y, and 14. I want to figure out which one's the short, which one's the long, and which one's the hypotenuse. I'm just going to go ahead and erase this. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at our triangle. Well, obviously 14 has to be the hypotenuse. It's the side that's directly across from the box. So this means this is by default the hypotenuse. And I know the hypotenuse has to be equal to 2 times n. Okay. Now, what else do we have? I have X and Y. So between this, you have to look at your triangle, basically, and decide which one's the short leg, which one's the long leg. Here, we're just going to do it by looking. But just know that the shorter side will always be across from the 30-degree angle. So this is going to be our short side. The long side will always be across from the 60-degree angle because it's a wider opening. So it makes a longer side. Okay, so I know that the short side is equal to n. So n equals x. I know the long side is equal to n times the square root of 3. Okay, so this is what I have here. I have 14 equals 2n, I have x equals n, and I have y equals n times the square root of 3. What I need to do is figure out, obviously I'm looking for what x and y are, but to do that, I need to know what n is. So what I need to look for is which of these three little mini equations gives me the best chance of figuring out what n is. And it's always going to be the one that only has n and not any other letter. So obviously the only one that just has n in the equation and no other letter is going to be the first one, because the second one has x and n, and the third one has y and n. So I'm just going to use this one, and I'm going to use this equation, 14 equals 2n, and I'm going to solve for n. Okay, to solve, we're going to divide both sides by 2, This crosses out, and I have n equals 2. Great. Now that I know that n equals 2, I'm going to take this and I'm going to plug it in here and here. So wherever I see n, I'm just going to put a 2. So x is going to equal 2, and y is going to equal 2 times the square root of 3. Okay, again, let's look at this next one. I have the sides y, x, and 8. I know that the side labeled y has to be the hypotenuse. My short side is always across from 30 degrees, so the short side is 8. Actually, I'm gonna move that. And the long side is across from the 60-degree angle. Oops. Okay, so the hypotenuse is equal to 2n, so we have 2n equals y. The short side is n, so I have n equals 8, and the long side is n times the square root of 3, so I have n square root of 3 equals x. Again, what I'm looking to do is solve for x and y. So I'm going to write out everything I have here. 2n equals y. N times the square root of 3 equals y, or equals x, and n equals 8. So if we look, to find x and y, I need to know what n is. Well, I already know. It tells me right here that the short side is n equals 8. Since I know that n is 8, I can plug it in right there and right there. So I know that 2 times 8 is going to equal y, and 8 times the square root of 3 is going to equal x. So here y is actually going to be 16, and we don't need to do anything to x, it's already simplified. We have a couple more examples. Example 3. It says, if c equals 8, find a and b. So we got a couple things here. C is 8. I'm going to go ahead and just write that in. Okay. Find a and b. So it's the same thing we were doing on the previous two examples. We're trying to find two sides, and instead of being labeled x and y, here they're labeled a and b. So for part A, if c equals 8, so the hypotenuse is 8, then we're going to find a and b. We know that c is the hypotenuse, so 8 is the hypotenuse. We know that a is going to be the short side, and b is going to be the long side. I know that the short side is equal to n, so n equals a. The long side is n square roots of 3, so b equals n square roots of 3. And I know that the hypotenuse is 2 times n, so 8, or c, equals 2 times n. Alright, now again, we're going to write everything that we have. So I have 8 equals 2n, n equals a, n square roots of 3 equals b. The only one that just has one letter in it is this top one. So I'm going to go ahead and write this down. And I'm going to solve for n by dividing both sides by 2. And we have n equals 4. Now that I know that n equals 4, I'm going to take this value and I'm going to plug it in right there and right there. So I have 4 equals a, and 4 square roots of 3 equals b. Those are going to be my values. I don't have to simplify. I'm good to go. Now it says, if B is 18, find A and C. So what we need to do is get rid of that 8 that we used in the first example. Okay, and I'm going to trade out B. I'm going to place in an 18. So the sides don't change. We still have the short side is A, the long side is B, the hypotenuse is C. The only difference here is now we don't know what C is anymore. C is just a mystery, and so is A. I now know what B is, though, so I'm going to use this information to solve and find A and C. So I have 18 equals N times the square root of 3. I have N equals A, and I have C equals 2N. So the only thing that has one letter in it is going to be this top equation. I'm going to need to take this and solve for N. To solve, I need to divide both sides by the square root of 3. So I have N equals 18 divided by the square root of 3. Now the only thing here is I have to simplify this. I cannot have a radical in the denominator. So to get rid of that, we're going to rationalize the denominator by multiplying the top and the bottom of this fraction by the square root of 3. So this is going to be 18 square roots of 3 over the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 in the denominator becomes the square root of 9, which is going to become 3. So I have 18 square roots of 3 divided by 3. Now the last thing you can do is simplify 18 and 3. 18 divided by 3 is going to become 6. So this is going to be 6 square roots of 3. And remember, this is our N value. N equals 6 square roots of 3. Now that I know what N is, I can solve for A and for C by taking this value and plugging it in here and here. So just over on this side, I have A equals 6 square roots of 3, and C equals 2 times 6 square roots of 3, so C equals 12 square roots of 3. These are going to be my two answers. All right, example 4. We're going to solve for x and for y. So we have a triangle here. The little red tick marks on the sides right here, so here and here, it means these two sides are the exact same length. Okay. What I need to do is solve for x and y. And so if I just look at this triangle right here, oops, if I look at this triangle, I'm just going to redraw it. I have my little right angle. This side is 12, this is y, and this is going to be x divided by 2. So I'm going to label everything. This is going to be my hypotenuse. This is my long side. And this is the short side. I know my hypotenuse is always 2n. My long side is n times the square root of 3. My short side is just n. So I'm going to write everything I have. The only one that has one letter is the top one right here. Oop, not not the top one. It's the middle one right here. Okay, so I'm going to use this and I'm going to solve for n. To solve for n, I'm going to divide both sides by the square root of 3. These cancel. N equals 12 over the square root of 3, but I have to rationalize because I can't have a square root in the denominator of a fraction. The top is just going to be 12 square roots of 3. The bottom is going to be the square root of 3 times the square root of 3, which is going to be the square root of 9, and that will become 3. So 12 square roots of 3 over 3. The last thing is that 12 divided by 3 is going to become 4, so this is 4 square roots of 3. So n equals 4 square roots of 3. Now that I know what n is, I'm going to take it and plug it in just like I have every other time. Right there and right there. So y is going to equal 2 times n, which is 4 square roots of 3. So y equals 8 square roots of 3. That's our first answer. X divided by 2 equals n, and n is 4 times the square root of 3. So if I want to solve for x, what I have to do is multiply both sides of this equation by 2. That's going to cancel. And x is going to equal 2 times 4 square roots of 3. So x is going to be 8 square roots of 3. Remember, x is this entire bottom length. Now, the reason that these two triangles are the same, these sides are the same length, so like y and x have the exact same length, is because if you look, there's a 60-degree angle here, a 60-degree angle here, and these two 30s make another 60-degree angle. So if all three angles are the same degree, all three sides have to have the same length. Okay? All right, that's how you use the 30, 60, 90 rules for special right triangles.